Good evening. If you're watching this, then that means that I didn't abort this run, and you're you're part of a success story because last night was the first time where I just had to bail on a Searls After Dark production recording, and I realized that I just wasn't prepared to work on the stuff that I wanted to work on, and it would have been a waste of your time to watch me futz around and flail about. Although it might have been empathy building, so I want to share. That things don't always go great, and even though we've got a pretty good run of like stuff working out just at random with zero prep for this show, that's as much luck as it is anything. So just remember, even people who have a lot of experience, who maybe have a name for themselves, like I'm fortunate to have in certain segments of the population, very tiny ponds in which I am a fish. We not only do we screw up and struggle, but I really was just wrecked last night. I was like doubting myself, lack of confidence that I'd ever be able to figure it out, just beating my head against a wall. And every time I came back to the desk to try to make this work, I just struggled. And I knew that the answer was simple, but I couldn't find it because I was in my own head. So that happens to everybody. It's part of the journey of working in an industry that doesn't really know what it does. And yeah, well, anyway, so what better time to introduce tonight's cocktail? Let's get right off the bat. What I'm drinking here is called an Oolong Hai. It's a portmanteau, a Japanese portmanteau of two different words: oolong as in oolong tea, of course, and high as in highball. And the highball part is courtesy of the whiskey that's in it. So this is a Nikka coffee grain whiskey, which you may have seen before. It's become really popular in the States because they have apparently a really good distributor. But that coffee there with that Y at the end is not a typo. It is named after, I think, a fellow named John Coffey who designed that still. So it's the shape of the still in which the coffee is made. It is not coffee-flavored whiskey. Although, if it were, sign me up, because that sounds delicious. But in fact, I think there's probably enough caffeine in this beverage as it is, because Itoen Oolong tea is my go-to mixer for this particular oolong highball. And the best part about it is it takes on a whole new unique taste between the two elements. It's very unexpected. It's not, there aren't a whole lot of, Western cocktails like that. And the place you drink it is just the, piss alley bar in the middle of nowhere, or deep downtown in Shinjuku. And it's late at night, and the caffeine is actually helping you keep the party going. And that's what we're here to do. So let's keep the party going. Get some quick announcements. So next week, RailsConf, we have a lot of people speaking. Daniel Huss, Ali, Ibrahim, Megan Waller is joining me for my presentation, and Landon Gray is also speaking. So check out the schedule if you're going. And if you're not, be on the lookout. We're going to be posting a lot of videos. We also have this event called Test Double Office Hours, where if you're going to be at the event, great chance to meet me and the other double agents. We're going to be offering basically free consulting for anyone who wants to pair a program on something. Bring your own problem, or we'll bring ours. And then finally, my talk is, of course, the very last regular session before the real event, which is, of course, Aaron Patterson's closing keynote. So yeah, we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about standard and all the stuff we got going on. Next up, I'd mentioned this before, but I'm going to be in Japan for most of the month of May, partly for time off and partly to go to RubyKaigi 2023. Matsumoto is a wonderful city in the middle of Nagano Prefecture. You might have heard of that from the Olympics in the 90s. And I'm going to be trying my best to document my experience. So I'm going to take some photos, I'm going to take some videos, I'm going to be sharing those on our blog in some capacity. We haven't quite figured out technically how that's going to work. And I'm also going to try to give people the experience of going to Kaigi from the perspective of, wow, there's a lot of Japanese language Ruby talks and about features coming in the next version of Ruby 3.3. And a lot of that news just never really got to America, even pre-COVID, and post-COVID, it's been even more difficult to understand like what's really happening in Ruby. So I want to be a field reporter and talk about it. As a result of RailsConf and RubyKaigi, if you're a fan of this program, unfortunately, I'm going to be off the air for like probably 4 or 5 weeks. I might pop in, and if I've got some time, some dead time, I might work from my laptop and post that as an episode. But when I'm in the land of the rising sun, I can't be confident that all of my inspiration is going to strike after dark. So it might become a misnomer in the process. Okay. So today, what we're working on in our chat application with OpenAI's ChatGPT API, we did some slash commands last week. We have a slash command now for translation back into English, and another one for improving the grammar of a string or our previous message. And now I want to start thinking about the UI a little bit more, because we are using the normal kind of blocking HTTP API where we get all of that response all at once. But they also, if you check out this little thing right here, there's also a streaming API available, which means it uses server sent events, SSEs, to, it's not a particularly fancy thing. It basically just holds on to that HTTP connection longer. And rather than get the whole response all at once, if you've ever used ChatGPT, you've probably seen it like type out ding, 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 little videos, or little words. Sorry, I lost my train of thought because you'll never believe this. I forgot to start my stopwatch for the foreverth time. So I'm going to check my menu bar time here. We'll do it live. Okay, so just add 6 minutes to whatever this says. Anyway, if you've used ChatGPT, you've seen it stream out like words at a time, and that's just like a way nicer experience than just waiting 30 seconds and hoping ChatGPT-4 is like responding to you. In fact, GPT-4 is so slow, I've been thinking about making 3.5 the default because it's cheaper. So if we wanted to do that, right, we got to plan this out a little, right? There's so many ways we could start. First of all, if we go into the code here, let's pop over. We go into the code and we look at the thing that is currently sending this message, transmits message. We could, of course, tack on stream true here, but that only would create lots and lots more problems. It would result in us having a totally different type of response, also us not being able to send that result back to our caller method incrementally, because it's expecting one big monolithic result object with the full text on it. And then, of course, who's calling us? Like I've created for myself a real rat's nest of objects that assume we can get the whole answer up front. This was not designed to be a streaming application because I was thinking in terms of, oh, well, let's just move bit by bit. And I should have been thinking more that stream was going to affect the architecture of the application, because that transmits message is called by asks for reply over here after first saving the user's message. And then that ask for reply is called by yet another thing called handles user message. And that's only after, we determine the message type, we execute any slash commands, and then we do it. And then if we go into that controller, of course, the controller here is, the messages controller is the one where we submit this. That's where we call handle user message. So that's pretty deep down to expect one result and then just redirect to a chat after that result is present. That is going to make our life difficult if we try to solve this bottom up. If we try to solve this by going from transmits message, adding this stream thing, and then changing the result format, or thinking through the problem that way, as if we could just change the result format. Because ultimately, we won't have a way to asynchronously update that result object. And so thinking bottom up here can feel overwhelming. That's what I was experiencing last night. And it can also result in us kind of playing small ball, like changing, kind of making a mess of one thing at a time up a whole chain when it was really conceived for something else entirely. Way back in 2017, I gave a talk. I was privileged to be able to give the keynote at RailsConf 2017. I said the year very automatically, and then I was trying to recall, and then I struggled to remember the same year. Anyway, I was given the opportunity to do a keynote, and so I called the keynote "How to Program," and it's a talk about metacognition. It's a talk about our own ability to think about our thoughts and then improve how we think and respond by improving the feedback loops in our software development workflow. But it's also a talk about like how I work. And one of the things that I cover towards the end of the talk, if you ever do watch this, is that rather than refactor code when the architectural need is changed, the reason that I build these tree-like shapes of units is so that I can snip them. So when the needs change, I just whole hog will cut out entire units of code and their tests and just drive out a new solution. And is it more wasteful and time consuming? Yes. But the nice thing about it is I never end up with really large units that have a lot of churn in them. And I get the kind of healthy purge of any detritus or any unneeded features get continuously reconsidered as I work in a particular part of the application. So deletion, death is a part of life. Deletion of stuff on a regular basis is a regular part of your workflow. Seems necessary to me because otherwise we tend to mistake ourselves and think of software as an asset when it's really a liability. Our code is only just a kind of a source of bugs. So, all right. So that was why we wouldn't want to work bottom up. What does it mean to work top down in this case? How do we write, let's start up the application. How would we write from a web dev Rails perspective, riding these Rails? And I'm not going to even need this because it's literally just setting stream to true for now. Okay, so let's go to the chat. So we've got this very poorly, the design here, we need to update this box soon. Plenty of things to do on this application. All right, so if I type into this, hello, and I hit enter, it's going to synchronously, do that whole refresh thing. And I get that response back. Now, if I wanted to type this out bit by bit, it's tricky. Because then I can't just do the whole redirect. I have to find some other seam. The seam that we're given in Rails 7 out of the box, if you do the golden path Rails new, is called Turbo, specifically Turbo Streams. So if you go to hotwired.dev, this is a collection of three tools, but really Turbo and Stimulus are the ones that are what we're talking about. Stimulus is a JavaScript framework that just adds the right kind of JavaScript sprinkles to your stuff, and Turbo is two seemingly mostly unrelated implementations of the same idea, which is replace just parts of the page at a time instead of the whole big page. Turbo frames, which you've probably used because they've been, that was what Turbo was initially. Turbo frame was just the frame piece. Will just snip out the parts of the DOM that get replaced so that the user doesn't experience like a big flash of content and stateful things on the page can remain stateful. Turbo Streams is an API by which you can use server-side events or server-sent events or WebSockets, and that all happens for you under the hood. Turbo Streams will instead allow you to just update a DOM. You could replace the contents of a DOM. You could update the contents. You could append to the contents of something in the DOM. And that's what we're going to focus on, is just appending to a particular message. All right. So without further ado, that's a lot of planning, but this is not going to be something we're going to just do, snap our fingers and make happen. Even if I remember all the magical incantations for these kind of arcane APIs. The reason that Stimulus and Turbo are challenging is they force us to think differently about what the outside-in flow of behavior is in a Rails app. Where if you're like me and you've been doing this for on and off for 17 years, you think about the router goes to the controller and the controller's connected to the knee bone and so forth. We gotta be a little bit more nimble. So let's start where I love to start, in that controller, because that's my comfort zone, right? So if I go to the messages controller here, this will do a redirect to the chat path, which is still fine. It's just a difference of what's it going to get. If I go to handles user message here, and I look at that ask for reply, that's still fine. The slash commands are going to be their own thing. Making this work for those is going to be tricky. So we'll want to think about extracting something here that's useful, because here we're making the same kind of inline, just a post request. So let's not worry about the slash commands today. Instead, we will focus just on the normal messages. Okay, so transmits message. I think we can kill that comment by now. Also, I don't know where that errant guy was. Also, this is repetitive. We'll just say you're having a conversation in Japanese, much shorter. We're saving fractions of a penny when we remove text from prompts. And then always respond in Japanese. All right. And I'll put a little period there to be just to waste money. Okay. So we're not going to change the stream right away, right? Like that was one of the first things I said, because first, why would we not do that? Because first we have to rejigger this whole thing to use turbo. So let's keep this exactly as it is and pop up a layer. So we're going to pop back up to ask for reply. When would we want to delegate to something else to start streaming content back? And the answer, I think, is after we've saved the user's message and just before we send that HTTP request. Because if we send the HTTP request and then we stream the data back on the blocking HTTP thread, first of all, Heroku has a 30-second timeout, which is no good. But also, it will not give us a mechanism for sending those updates back to the browser because we wouldn't have rendered the next message, even if it starts off being an empty message. So what I think we should do is start with, let's say, should we just cut this out entirely? This transmits message thing, I think we probably should. So I'm going to nix it, grab some of the useful, yummy bits inside. I don't like how that sounded. I regret saying that very much. All right, so we're going to grab... in fact, what I think we'll do is we're going to save an empty message. We're going to save a new message. We're going to save it on the chat. We're going to call it not reply result something, just text is blank, assistant. And we also probably want to keep track of whether it's a complete message or not. So I'll say complete false, and then we'll make that real. Okay. Once we have that, now this is another thing. This is returning a fancy result object that I do not care about. It's true. I don't care about it. I don't like how to slice this. Let's punt for now, and we'll think about that later. For now, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of, I suppose. Okay, well, we can still return that reply result, I guess. Yeah, so if the reply result is a success, we want to call something else. Let's call, we haven't made any jobs yet, but ActiveJob is the built-in way with Rails to delegate something off the main thread. Even job makes it sound like a big deal, but really all we're trying to do is just make this thing happen asynchronously. And so for now, we're going to do it real simply. We're going to say, actually use a generator here, bin rails g job, and we'll call it stream reply job. Streams reply job, streaming reply, stream reply job. Okay. Because I don't have any tests or haven't been testing regularly, I'm just going to remove this one so I don't feel shame about that. All right. Now, when we're here, let's call out our arguments. Really all we need is the message ID because we can get everything else we need there. You can pass active record stuff to this, but I never trust queuing systems to actually do that and serialize everything right. The ID should suffice. So then what we need to do, and if you've never used the job API, rather than calling new yourself and then calling perform, you can call class methods perform and perform later, maybe perform now and perform later, I guess. And yep, and then pass it in. That perform later means it's going to get queued up. And by default, it's just an async worker, meaning like it just starts a thread. It's not persisted. This is not a safe, durable like production solution. For that, you might consider using our friend Mike Perham's Sidekick as your queuing system. But if you're lazy like me and mostly here just to try to like see if we can prove this out, okay, we'll call that. Next up, now that we have this, let's grab this transmits message stuff. And here, we have chat. So we need a chat and a message object. So message equals incomplete, I guess message.find. Yep. And then chat, we should be able to get that off the message, right? So even though it seems silly going message.chat.messages, we'll get that from there. And that means we need to check the associations on the message. And it doesn't belong to chat because we haven't really done much. Yep. So belong to chat. Belongs to chat. Is this not parsing? Oh, it's just a weird. Okay. So once we have that response, what do we do? Now remember, we're not adding the stream stuff still. I just want to go end-to-end working with Turbo. All right, so if we do that and the response is a success, oh, look at that. Yeah, that's an option. Yeah, I suppose that's not far off. I don't want to update the message, of course. So I'll just say, for now, I'll say, and this is actually something we get is an error message object. So we're going to call it response.errorMessage for now. Okay. So if it's successful, we do that. We just call update. And then after that, we have to figure out how to wire this all together. But let's see if we can at least get that far. So what we should experience then is an empty message followed by this happening, followed by nothing because we haven't wired it up. So we're going to build this railway one rail tie at a time. I suppose that's what the word rail tie actually means. Are we running our server? We are running our server. Yeah, and I also said complete false. So there's another thing we got to do. Rails complete false meaning a new attribute on message. So we're going to do a new migration called add complete flag to messages. See that go? Pop up. All right, here we go. We're going to say change table messages do t. In general, whenever I'm adding a new Boolean, if it makes sense for it to not be null, it shouldn't be null on our existing stuff. Yep, and so there we go. We get the correct suggestion from our friend GitHub Copilot, brought to us by our friends at GitHub. Okay, redo. Always run redo. Redo. Why do I keep saying? I don't know. All right, so we got that flag now. All right. I can just tell I'm stalling. I'm nervous because I've seen this not work 1,000 times. All right, refresh this page. Okay, so here we go. We're still having to scroll down manually. Okay, so I got hi and I got the empty reply. Cool. And then I got the looks like a commit. So if I refresh now, right? Because like the thing that Turbo Streams is saving us is having to refresh the page. It's going to use a WebSocket connection under the hood. Yep. Yeah. All right. So that's great. Good first start. Next up, after we wire this together, there's a few magical methods that we have to use, and there's not enough prior art on the internet to show you how to do this right. So here I am existing. I'm going to just type in answers that even here I have notes because I had to spike this out. I have notes that I will follow, and hopefully this will help you, and maybe even Google will find it someday, which will save you some time. So we're going to go into our first things first. Again, I'm still in refactor mode. Like technically that was a refactor. It was, well, no, it wasn't. It was a bad one because I make you not see the thing anymore until you refresh. But you know what I'm saying? Like I'm restructuring things to make my future job easier. One of the things I'm going to want to do here, along the same vein, is probably create a partial for each of these messages, because we're going to be re-rendering messages a lot. So let's start and say, well, hell, I could just say render chat.messages. And I believe that when render takes a group, it might just work. If not, it just needs like only a minimal amount of prodding. All right, so we're going to go into app views. Now we're going to make a new thing called messages. Now we're going to make message.html.erb. Cool. Pull that down. And now we won't need that loop anymore if we're doing the render partial as a group thing. And it's going to assume a local named message. And all this stuff, does it reference anything else? Nope. Remember, we have this super duper long line here only because this is a white space pre block. And we don't want like extra white space up at the top. Okay. Does this still render? Still renders. Cool, so that just worked. Every now and then, Rails is just kind of magic. I believe Olivier Lacan helped by contributing either this or like good docs around it, but it was thanks to equipment that he put to Rails that I found it. So thanks to Olivier, friend of the show. Probably doesn't watch the show. You're here though, and you're the one. You're the real star. Thanks to you. I don't thank you enough. All right. So I'm all business. I'm here to slay this dragon. I top off my non-alcoholic portion of this beverage. Okay, 26 minutes. We're making decent time. Okay. Now that I've got that done, I want to put in a TurboStream hook. The way you do that, when you're working with an active record model anyway, that serves as the target of that hook. First, there is an ID field that we're going to want to set so it knows what to replace or append. And if we're doing append, it's going to be trickier. So let's start with doing update and see how that looks. I have append in mind because that's visually what you're seeing is you're seeing text get appended, but update is probably ultimately fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to just create a little ID on this using the DOM ID helper, something that I'd never needed or seen until I started using Turbo. But basically you pass anything this and it'll put an ID. You know what I'm saying? I might have refreshed too fast. Oh, right. It's still using the IVAR. Got it. Oh, is it render partial? Render partial group. I was so excited. You see, Olivia, if you were here, you would have been yelling at me. It's a good thing you don't watch the show. Collection. Yeah, just show me. Sure. Will it figure out which partial? It will not. Well, no. Wait, hold on. It figured out the partial, but it's not passing it the individuals. So what we're going to say is, as message, one would think. Oh, wait. Shoot. Shoot. This was actually all working. This DOM ID is way up here. What the hell? Goodness gracious. Whew. It is crazy. It is wild. It is, sorry. Try not to say crazy as much anymore. Let's just undo all these sins. Was this class just chilling? Just this empty classless thing? All right, well, forget that. Instead, div with this ID here. Well, that's embarrassing. I was like, man, that sure seemed to work for not working. Always test. Do not make assumes. I was making a lot of assumes. All right, let's see what this ID looks like here. Hello. Sometimes Web Inspector and Safari will just do this. Okay, sure. Let's go to the bottom, I guess, because it's a lot of... Oh, am I not closing a div? Yeah, I mean, that's not great either. I get it. Sometimes it'll do this stupid browser. And it's like, I might be culpable. All right, show me potato salad. All right, so here we go. We got to close that div that we just opened. Because /end, I don't know if you know this, doesn't magically close whatever HTML bracket you're currently looking at. Not a lot of people. That's a pro tip. All right. So that stuck those IDs on there. Took an awful lot of time to just stick an ID on something. But that's what you get when you are just doing it live. Okay. Now that I've got the ID on there, I want to build a turbo stream from it. This is going to be the target of the turbo stream, so I don't want to put the turbo string hooky tag thing. I don't know what we call these. Turbo stream tag. This will generate a custom component style tag of turbo-stream, and we're going to generate it from the message. So let's see that happen. As you could see, that's a lot of tags. This is like a lot of hefty markup. And if you have a long chat, when do we need to render this is the question. And the answer to that, I think, is if the message is an assistant message and the message is incomplete. Note that I said incomplete here. I realize that is not a method. So I'm going to go over to message here and just define it real quick. Incomplete. Yep. Opposite complete. Okay, let's try this again. Interesting. Oh, shoot. A whole bunch of stuff is marked incomplete because I didn't look too closely at the default. So default is true, right? So complete, default true, null false. And now we're just going to, rather than sit through and try to fix it, we're just going to redo that again. Okay. Now we should be back in business. Always check the DOM. If you're doing stuff that changes the DOM, try that out. Okay, so now if I type one in, hi, it's refreshing the whole page. I don't know if it's using Turbo, but it's refreshing the whole thing, which isn't great. Wonderful. So I only got the one stream getting added this time. Probably makes sense to do an append on the group. No, because I'm not appending a message per thing. So if you look at demos of like either Action Cable or Turbo Stream, you see a lot of chat applications. But the chat feature that they're all talking about is you get streaming in replies, not you get streaming in words as those replies are typed, because that would be a kind of a privacy violation if you were seeing every single keystroke of your partner. Here, this is unusual, where it's the message that's the sauce, and we're really just looking at like additional words being added. So this is right. Once I've got that source set up, and the signed stream name, I assume, is some sort of cryptographically signed, hopefully based on the Rails secret name for that stream, so that people who just guess an ID for another chat that they want to surreptitiously read wouldn't be able to also receive and register for it. Excuse me. Good evening. Okay. Once we've got that wired up, then we want to send updates from the job. So let's go back to our job, which was called something about streaming job. Close this off. So if we broadcast the update, which is a thing you can do, broadcast update on any active model, I believe, it will look by default. There's like a 2 with like other parameters I want to play with, but by default, it'll broadcast a message to itself or any frames that match whatever that signature is of itself. So let's try this again. Okay, so this is bye. There you go. Look, it didn't refresh the page. Isn't that wonderful? So the first one refreshes the page because it's just us, but this one just, yeah, nice. Just scroll down. I scrolled down. We haven't done any sort of auto scrolling. So this is good. Now what we want to do is we've got to consider like this streaming API. Now we could just test this out, like test that it would work. If we were to like split this message up and do a bunch of updates. But instead, I'm feeling frisky. I think we're making some progress here. Let's talk about what happens when we see this kind of reply versus a stream reply. So we're gonna trying to think. Where do I want this code to live? Let's go to that OpenAI HTTP. We're going to put it there for now. And we'll migrate all of our stuff gradually. So post, sure, that's our only method. We're going to, since we have other stuff calling that method, as I had forgotten earlier, like translate and whatnot, we're going to say, well, I guess we could just pass stream true. But the return value is different. That would be a lot of branching. So I'm not posting a stream, posting and stream back. Streaming post. I don't love it. Okay. All this stays the same. This even stays the same. It'll give you the headers. You'll get the headers back. What changes is really, I guess, just this. Instead of parse here, okay, well, in this case, now this is so similar, I'm actually going to keep it one method. We're going to say stream false. Okay, so if stream, we'll say handle streaming response. Perfect. Else, we'll just do the normal thing. And I'll say streaming. I like a good gerund. Okay. So well, it's a module method, so I'd have to do the whole thing. I'll just say private just to make myself feel better. Okay, so let's just make some space to get that off the bottom of the page. Private. This is going to take two things. It's going to take a callback, because the person calling us needs to tell us what to do as we get little bits and pieces. So we're going to take that final block param. So in Ruby, a method signature, if you don't write a lot of this stuff, is arguments and then keyword arguments and then an optional block param. I say optional because you could also just say yield, but since we're passing it, we're wanting to pass it around in here. In fact, I don't need to do that twice. I can just say pass the callback in, and now I've got a reference to it. Okay. Okay. For this, we want a different method entirely, and it's called readBody. Look, I wired up dash into Raycast So I'm real proud. Gets the entity body returned by the HTTP group. This is going to be, oh shoot, this is going to be tricky. This will work. The read body will work, but not with the way that we've set up this request to date. It's going to throw an error. This is me telling the future to ourselves. So let's just do this for now and say, hey, puts chunk, I guess. We'll get that much. And then we will at least attempt to wire this up. We'll say streaming, true. We should get this error that I am predicting that we will get. And it'll just pop into our console because we've deferred it into this job. Okay, so we just won't see that fill. I feel less badly about Bizarro errors when I predict them authoritatively. They don't freak me out quite as much. Error performing. Undefined method error message. Oh, okay, this is a different error. Let's see. What is that? Oh, it's just JSON. Why am I writing? Ah, I see. Because I'm probably imitating it. And this is a case of GitHub Copilot actually knowing what I wanted and me not believing it. So we're going to try this again. Hey. This also will fail. Okay, here. Will it fail for a different reason? Change the message. Yes. Sadly, a different message. Response.json.dig. Yep. Okay, try that one more time. Okay, that failed. Invalid JSON. Okay. So the invalid JSON, this is something we got back from, oh, shoot. Shoot. So if we're going to call streaming, we don't want to do this anymore at all. Instead, we want to get, yeah, we're not going to get, It's going to call our block. We need to pass it a block, right? What was I doing here? Yeah, let's call that callback. So any debugging crap, we're going to put it in here. It's it's been so long that I've been passing blocks and functions around and stuff, and it never comes naturally. It's embarrassing, but there it is. I mean, I do it a ton, don't get me wrong. I'm a cool kid, don't get me wrong. All right, this also failed. Oh yeah, because that streaming flag didn't seem to be doing anything, was one reason. Okay, so streaming is set to false. Path data, streaming false. Oh, because I was getting standard error for some. Sure. Oh, you know what? It's probably some stupid parse error. It's let's just re-raise whatever it is. I'm missing an error. Probably should have just done this HTTP stuff in line. Also, I'm going to downgrade us from GPT-4 to 3.5 here in a second, just to get faster. Yeah, undefined stream, Doit. Yeah, that would do it. Also going to downgrade us to GPT 3.5 Turbo for now. This should be the name of the magical string. Okay, let's try that now. Go back. Should still fail. I'm just looking for the right failure. There we go. Handle streaming response in. Oh, should I called it private, but then I went ahead and named it an instance method anyway. This needs to be self dot because I'm calling this. I also don't write a lot of class methods. Okay, that failed faster. Yep, here we go. Finally, this is the error I was expecting. HTTP OK, read body called twice. For whatever reason, and I'm not an expert in the net HTTP API, this is a thing that happens. So what I think we need to do is let's concatenate this path onto here. And then create a request. So we're going to create, and here I'm going to actually look up. You see me looking up, it's because I'm cheating. Hello, net HTTP post new, and I pass it the URI. And when I'm done, I'm going to manually set, I get a request back, right? I'm going to set the request headers this way. So I'm going to grab the first one. And then the second one is authorization. Yep. Which is going to be this value. Okay. So I'm going to kill this, and then the body on the rec is going to be data to JSON. That should work. So then start is the same, and I'm just going to say HP request rec do res. Just one more layer of nesting. This seemed to work for me before, if I typed all those words correctly. Not blowing up. It did blow up. Okay, failed to open. What do I do to that path? Oh, URI.new versus URI. Oh, no, that's parse. Am I passing the slash in? Let's check this out. I'm not. Invalid node name, probably. Okay, try that again. Cool beans. That failed fast. Undefined method success for 404. Okay, so I'm clearly. Oh, first of all, this response is res now. So we're going to change its name. Res. Oh, shoot. Right, it's returning a different thing now. So I'm going to go ahead and just nix this. Well, hold on. Is it still? Yeah, I suppose it'll just be nil. Now let's do it after. That seems tidier. Sure. So this is going to be blocking. Remember, Ruby is not just magically asynchronous. So like this is still blocking, but it's blocking inside of an asynchronous job. So it's okay that it's blocking IO. So we will get this response back, and then we can do stuff with it. Try that again. We're going to get some kind of not found. Was it too slow? Yes. That was very slow. Okay, so let's quadruple check this URL. I'm looking up now because I had this working. Oh, was there a V1 somewhere in here before? It wants a V1. I don't blame it. Maybe I just whiffed. Okay, lots of errors today. This is not the best way to work through having lots of errors. Okay, well I got content back. That's great. Got this chunk. That's me printing the chunk. Missing keyword JSON. Okay. So I'm using data.define, which of course means I got to be explicit. So I'll just say JSON nil. So something good happened. It, of course, did not update my thing correctly, but we're also not parsing it correctly. And we blew up. I have to edit that out. I don't know why my email popped up. Oh, I don't know. Well, I do know why. I freaking moved my mouse down and I clicked email and then it popped up. If you didn't see anything, you didn't see anything. All right. So close. All right, we're at around 51 minutes. I'd like to get a little bit further. So let's just keep pulling on this thread. So if it's streaming, get rid of that raise for now because we're hitting the server correctly. It's more about this success. The success that we'd be getting back is no longer the thing that's going to be doing these message updates, right? Rather, we're going to be getting them here. And we're going to be updating them here. And I guess we don't care otherwise, other than say if it's not a success, blow up. So this time, we won't see stuff happen, but we hopefully will, for the first time, not see an error happen as we look at this very lonely, empty message box. Oh, we saw an error happen. Again, no success. It's getting a net HTTP back. Oh my. Oh, that's from the job executor. So response back from that post. Oh, is it? No. So if it's streaming, handle the response, return a result. Why wouldn't that work? Need to look at this with fresh eyes. So this is too many ifs and elses if you haven't caught. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Would this still be happening? I'm way off base somewhere, and somewhere someone is watching this and they're like, you're way off base, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Did that pudding come up? Okay. Pudding, opening, yep, okay, sure. But it got the HTTP back. If this, give me an and if that, then return this. Oh shoot, it's this HTTP request. Oh, darn it all hell. Okay, so it is returning the request because we're using a block. Shoot. So I could return. I don't want to return early or use explicit return statements here. Blah. Does it matter if I use the... Do I have to pass a block? Could I just do this? I would love like a little less nesting. I'm just dubious because I always see the block form given, but I don't know. Okay, well. Something happened. Am I putting... Did I put any chunks out? Did not put any chunks out, so that's not a good sign. Yeah, which means nothing happened if I refresh this page. So I was like, oh, I had commented this out, so of course I got no chunks. Okay, try this again. Another error. Boy, so many errors. And this is exactly how I was feeling the other day. Okay, undefined method dig for... So where am I? Once again. I feel like I just made that change somewhere else. Maybe I just mashed on the undo button too many times. Runtime, failed to stream reply, invalid JSON. Right. Where am I reading it? Read body, do chunk. So it was working? All right, let's stick that up there again. I don't like that VS Code just puts a magical standard error right there. It makes me think I'm doing something that I'm not. Okay, just again. All right, fails again. This time. Oh, damn it all to hell. It did it again. So I got... So maybe I do need... Maybe what I'm learning is I do need the block form here. So if I'm going to need to use the block form, then I will... I will pull out a method, which I will call... So let's do this first. Do res end. Okay, I'm going to say handle response. Sure. Just pass that rec. Okay. I say def self dot handle response rec. Do res. Then I'm going to return the value of yield. That way I'm not adding a whole bunch of return statements in here. Let's try this now. Oof, the fun part's never the part that I predict. It's always a new fun part. Also man, just so many errors. Undefined variable HTTP, of course it is. Because I'm using closure scope here, unexpectedly. Where am I referring to HTTP? Yeah, right there. Okay, that's no real big deal. Just one thing after another. Change the message, make it pass. This is like a lot of work for not a lot of lines of code. I get it. All right. It put a chunk correctly. Well, no, it didn't. It put the whole damn thing correctly because we didn't turn streaming on yet. So this is what it looks like when you're not streaming. We're going to add here. We're going to say stream true. All right. Now we're going to look at what that looks like when you are streaming, what that API looks like. See, now here we go. Finally, you can see all these chunks are coming in, and they have a certain flavor. The first one shows data :space and then JSON of just a message starting. The second one, which comes in the same chunk, has the first bit of content. And you can see it's coming in character by character here. So as it thinks of a character, it's coming back. And then the last one says data done. Okay. So what do we do with this information? These chunks are going to be strings. So we could say for each chunk, I want to split on, say, data space. So I'm going to get everything that starts with data. And then let's strip out leading and trailing white space. So we're getting stuff that's for realsies. And then I suppose, yes, for each of those, each time we get one of those, then if data is literally just done, that last message, then I guess we say message.complete is true. Else, that first message was also different. That first one, which has two datas in it, it does not have any content. So here's this piece. It's not quite the same though, right? The shape is different. If we look, it's ID, object, model, choices, delta. Okay, so there's a delta between that and content. Okay, so else if content equals, is message still? No, there's not a message. It's just message becomes delta, I suppose. Okay. So if there's content, then message.update text. Now it's only one character, so I guess message.text plus content. And this should also be an update, I suppose. And regardless, after receiving the whole chunk, if there's multiple in a chunk, even though there's only really that one, then we should broadcast an update. Seems right. I don't know. We're over an hour now. I get it. This is a big one. Okay, did not magically work because it unmagically failed. No method error. Undefined JSON for nil. All right. Oh, sure. So this response to JSON is copy paste silliness. Data is going to be the string. It should be JSON parsable with any luck. I get the same thing again. I gotta parse it as JSON. JSON.parse. Oh, and if I strip you and you're still an empty string, like the case here, then I guess I want to reject empties. Sure. So I don't want to deal with any empty strings because that's an empty string is not valid JSON. All right, stuff happened. Weird. Konnichiwa. Was it just fast? Oh, okay, cool. So stuff is here. Excuse me because I made this full screen again. How rude of me. Hard to read. Hopefully that's not too much of a just writing garbage. Holy crap, that was fast. Now I got to turn on GPT-4 again just to be slow enough to see this happen. My Wi-Fi is really slow in the rest of the house, and that's where I was working before. We got it. We got it. Look at that. Look what you just made. So, are you a real person? Let it type out hyper. Jinko. Chino? No system? Oh, that must be the word for artificial intelligence. How can I help you? Oh, man. That feels good. All right, so we still got a lot of work to do in our lives, but we knocked out two big things. How to set up TurboStream and how to handle streaming responses via just net HTTP. You don't need a fancy gem. You don't need Typhoeus. You don't need the HTTP gem. The normal HTTP gem can handle streaming responses if you're tender about it. So, all right. Well, that feels good. You did a good job today, audience. It's glad that it makes it happy that he was useful, is what he's saying. All right, well, hey, a lot of you sent me emails last week at our email address, lets@playstupid.games. Appreciate that. And yeah, send me more. I love your notes. Remember, I'm going to be off for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So if you're going through any Searls After Dark withdrawal, you can also reach out and I'll tell you what I'm up to. You can also follow me, of course, on mastodon.social/@Searls or justin.searls.co or blog.testdouble.com. But hopefully I'm back in regular cadence in June, which is a far, far time from now. Maybe I'll have facial hair. Who knows? Maybe I'll be missing an eyeball. Travel is scary. I don't know why that was the first thought I had. Good night. Boy, that was cheesy. Good night. See you later.